Daystar and U.S.AID are the corruption empires crashing, and what does it mean for us as taxpayers, as tithers, and will it just be pushed under the rug again, or will we see real change? Are there corruption empires crumbling before our very eyes, crashing, and will this time real change occur? And what does it mean for our finances as tithers and as taxpayers? Because so many of us are rather angry with what has been done with our money. And I want to start with the church scandals, because after all, so many times we hear, well, churches are made out of humans, which is true, and humans are fallible, and so basically just to bear and grin it if the leaders fail us. And yes, we could say once the SA is uncovered and hopefully the perpetrators are put to justice, should we all go back as normal? Or is there a ripple effect? See, it seems the ripple effect is that the entire empire is rotten. Because why was there cover-ups? Repeated cover-ups on many different levels, including the SA, including Marcus Lamb's own affair, including the false, as it turns out, as far as we have seen so far, allegations of blackmail that really just were a lawsuit, and the rather peculiar divorce of Doug Weiss and marriage to Joni Lamb. Well, it has a ripple effect insofar as it tells us the cover-ups didn't just happen, they happened for a reason. And the reason was, as it appears, money. Because how was the empire funded? By us, the tithers, the believers, the supporters, and the donators, and those who gave donations. And so for that reason, it was covered up. So by just uncovering the wrongdoings, that's one thing, but in a sense, the wound has festered throughout the entire body, because we see that this organization hasn't put God first as they pretend to be doing, but literally, as the Bible warns us, to put money, the love of money, before God and making it a false idol. All the while exhorting us, the viewers, to pay their tithes. And not only would the tithes support the ministry, but also get God's blessings. And I believe in tithing. I tithed, and I cannot tell you the miraculous things that happened in my financial life at that time. And then for that same reason as we are seeing now, churches that I once trusted, I could no longer trust local churches, and I stopped tithing. And I noticed my financial investments dwindled and finances became hard. So I started tithing again. But the question for us is, where should we tithe? Because we're not tithing a Daystar ministry or a TV, a broadcaster, or a particular preacher. We are supporting God's ministry, and that is being blessed. And we have a great responsibility to actually support God's ministry and not just any kind of preacher, which would be kind of like entertainers almost.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to take God's money and pay to keep from being humiliated, I guess, or exposed or exploited, whatever you want to call it.
See, Marcus Lamb, who is almost being treated as a saint because after all he passed away, but didn't he represent this rot in an organization where he covered up his affair, 7-year affair that allegedly happened and that he admitted to on TV and with Dr. Phil, by a supposed larger wrongdoing, by pointing to a supposed blackmail, which, as we find out, may never have happened, was just a lawsuit, a justifiable lawsuit, we may add, by a reputable lawyer who represented the victims. So not only did he have an affair, then he covered it up with a lie and made himself out to be a victim of the alleged blackmailers.
The threat was not the three supposed extortionists, but a licensed attorney with 29 years of experience and a spotless record. Instead of answering the question, Marcus Lamb said, well, a couple of weeks ago, the information came to us that these three people were demanding $7.5 million in order to keep from going to the media. This, I'm reading from the lawsuit that alleges these things that I'm opining about for entertainment purposes. The statement was false.
And of course, Joni went along with that. So the question is, how deep does the corruption run? And he also says in an interview that he was shocked by how high the supposed blackmailers, their demand was of God's money. So it wasn't even that they asked for money, but how high it was, and then to add insult to injury of God's money. Is that almost as blasphemous as Joni saying she is the voice of God, knowing now that that money was not used for a good portion for God's purposes, but for affairs, money that he spent on his extramarital affairs, and then for the cover-ups. So when he says God's money, he deceives us, the public, those who supported Daystar, those who tithed to its various ministries, and those who believe they're supporting God, when in reality, what he claims to be God's money was corrupt money. See, when I heard Ohio for Freedom, who is a delight to listen to, and he had the Patriot dad on in an interview just this week, and this brave man spoke of his son who was diagnosed with epilepsy, and the doctors told him and his family the son would never be able to live a normal life or drive a car. He would always be struggling with epilepsy. However, the son was healed in another ministry that's under the Daystar umbrella, the Gary and Brenda Cassie, who also have now been uncovered to have covered up SA and all kinds of shenanigans, let's say, that are certainly not God's work. And so this dad said that his son was healed in that ministry, and that there were powerful prayer warriors in that ministry that he himself left because of the allegations and because of what he observed to not be a godly ministry. And people might say, but look what good they do, such as healing or such as preaching the word. But so this wonderful dad spoke about his son being healed of epilepsy in this church that he now himself has abandoned because of the corruption he observed. And he reminds us to not mix up the works of the Holy Spirit with a particular ministry. It's all too easy to say, oh yes, this church has done so much good, and therefore we should just be quiet about its wrongdoings. Well, again, it's the Holy Spirit and not the church, for one. And B, and the prophets of the Bible admonished that if they're false prophets, we should abandon them. We should not continue supporting false or corrupt prophets. The other thing, of course, that we've noticed recently is the corruption that has been going on for decades with U.S.AID. Is it that God is really uncovering for us all to see what we many times knew but couldn't prove, such as corruption that cries to high heaven? If you've seen some of the funds and what purposes, many times truly ungodly purposes, these monies went to, and most likely these were laundered funds, taxpayers' funds that went to often inane or ungodly or counter-American interests, such as funding the Taliban and ISIS. A good portion of that money was flowing back into American corrupt pockets via money laundering schemes. So it's easy to feel victimized by Daystar, victimized by U.S.AID, and feel disempowered because we have given our money either voluntarily as tithes or donations or forcibly with tax dollars, and it has all been to our detriment. It has all been for corruption, for cover-ups, for lies, for outrageous scandals and ungodly purposes. But this is why it's so important that we speak up with the legacy media that are quickly losing ground and losing influence. It was always the next day would bring a new news cycle, and the scandals of yesterday would quickly be covered up and forgotten. But with the rise of social media, YouTubers, X, and on, our voices cannot be so quickly silenced. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to join the chorus, if you will, of voices who say, not so fast, no, we are not forgetting, and yes, we are requiring accountability. And no, it's not gossip, as some have accused those who speak up against church corruption, but it is a way to join the chorus of truth, of people who speak up and will not be silenced. Why does this interest me? Well, for one, I am always someone I like to speak up when I see outrageous injustice. But also I've become more and more interested in finances, especially as so many of us grew up looking down on finances. I grew up Catholic before I came to the US. I was in Germany, and in the US I became Christian, what I consider a real Christian. But there was always this idea that the rich are bad, and these scandals seem to reaffirm these ideas that the rich are corrupt and greedy and put money first. But as the story of the talents show us, money is very, very important to God, and our way of dealing with money and increasing money and handling money properly is very important to God. And to our well-being, of course. We cannot help the poor by joining the poor. But I, for one, could never follow the gurus. The ones, and I know not to step on anyone's toes, but Dave Ramsey's to the Susie Orman crowd. And so I discovered a different approach that deals with individual personalities. I call them prosperity personalities. Not everyone has the same talents. We have different types of talents, and the Bible tells us so. But the money gurus all give us a one-fits-all approach. So I have developed And I must say, I developed it in part because I worked in Hollywood for so many years, and I was a professor of cinema studies, not making films, but studying story structure, heroes, and so on, genres, at UCLA and at Pepperdine University in Malibu. And out of that, I developed a particular approach to wealth creation that deals with your individual heroine or hero, money hero, prosperity personality, I prefer to call it. And so if that interests you, I have a free link for a free assessment where you can find out what prosperity personality you are. So let's not be victims. And by the way, again, the victim mentality not only is a negative for us because it disempowers us, but so oftentimes, just like with Marcus Lamb, by putting himself in the victim role, it was a way to cover up his own wrongdoings. So instead of saying, well, look, they're all corrupt, from the churches to the government, let's just, bury our talents, like it says in the tale of the talents. One got 1 talent, he buried it. One got 5 talents and increased it, doubled it before the master came back. The other one got 10 talents and doubled that before the master came back. See, but talents is a way of money, currency, but it's also, of course, our talents. Not all of our talents are the same. And so how we make money, how we approach prosperity is very unique to us. And so this is where I come in because it interests me very much. And I hope it interests you, so we can step out of the victim role and empower ourselves in a godly way when it comes to money and finances. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.